So in the invocation, the guided meditation at the very end of it, what came through were the Kotodama. And the Kotodama, I learned about those from a Reiki master, Nita Mokanu, from France years ago. And the Kotodama, there's no evidence stating that Usui was specific in using the sounds of the Kotodama for the Reiki symbols or the Reiki symbols to match the Kotodama. There's no actual evidence. But Hokue, the power symbol, Aaki, the mental emotional symbol, Hoaze Hone, distance symbol, and the Usui master symbol, Aiko-yo. And Jonathan Goldman, who is a Grammy award-winning sound healer and teacher, was at the same conference. And he decided that he wanted to compose music with the Kotodama. So he and his wife and Michael Baird and Laurel Gaia actually produced the, at that time, CD, now it's digital, but the CD called Reiki Chants. And in the Reiki Chants is actually the Kotodama, is what is the sound in them. And they're chanted. And since we were talking about space clearing this month, for me, that is one of the things that I use as one of my methods of space clearing. Like I'll play those chants and specific music with that intention that it's clearing the space. And so you can find that. Oh, you put the link to it here. And reikiclasses.com. And I bet you that we would have permission to use that, but we'll go ahead and ask first. So anyway, I use that sound, and the sound is chanting. The music is beautiful, and the sound is chanting the Kotodama for the energy of the Reiki symbols. So anyway, that was showing up in the invocation. And, you know, as Robyn said, these are always channeled, so we kind of never know where they're going to go. But I also liked the way that it was showing how you can just invite Reiki energy to clear, heal, and empower the space around you in the way that we just did. So it can be verbal. And the way that this was coming in from my perspective, I'm very metaphorical in my visuals. So my intuition works with clairvoyance. So it's visual, but it's not exact. It's more metaphorical. So I just see images that would be like what I imagine. And so the way that that shows up for me is that the energy, a lot of times, actually, it's a whole bunch of little angels that come in and clean. But in this case, it was like the energy just coming through each of your spaces, wherever you are, if you're in your home or car or office, and even more than where you are right now. Like the energy was just coming in and cleaning and clearing that space. And I liked how it came in to do that through the Reiki ideals. So just for today, I will not worry or be angry and let it go. I let that go today, and how it came through. And I thought, well, it was really, that kind of is really complete, to do it with the Reiki ideals, to let that come in, and just your space is filled with gratitude, and it's easy to be devoted to your day, which I think of as my work, not just my job and what I do, but devoted to myself and my day and my life. And then that receiving of kindness, that the energy of kindness is flowing through into your space. So anyway, that's what it felt like in the invocation. And I really like the way that came through. So the other thing that I always like to just state pretty repeatedly is how I perceive the Reiki energy doing this work, that it actually fills the space, and through grace and compassion, the energy actually does this work for us. There's an authority to it. Like, we get to live in healthy space. We get to have sovereignty in our body. That's part of our divine right. And so the energy of Reiki will just lift what needs to be released or cleared or healed, and it actually carries it through that power and authority of light where it heals it. So it's not just taken somewhere else, or it's not really even judged. It's more just, it needs to go somewhere else, the burden of it released from you, and the space clear for you to live your healthy, thriving life from. And, we know that there are times in life when our spaces get heavier and more clearing is needed. Events occur in our world, in our experience, in our space, in our life. Thoughts that we have, as we talked last week a lot about, thought viruses and things that actually can impact our space. Words spoken, a lot of different things that can happen in our space. And so this week, what we thought we would talk about are some of the methods that we use with Reiki to clear the space, and some of the tools and techniques that we use. So because there's lots of them, lots of different ways that are the right way to do it. And the invocation was just one way that also works. So Robyn, I see you unmuted.
Well, I just think that it's actually a perfect, I think we should switch what we were planning on back to our originals because of what came through on the invocation. So I think we should talk about
Reiki
it all.
Trails.
Yeah, with Reiki and Reiki
Oh, okay.
Trails and all of that. Yeah, definitely. And we'll talk about
Okay.
the rest next week. It's funny because, like she said, the invocations are channeled, and sometimes when this happens, like, we know this is what we're supposed to talk about. So I love it, even though it was on our list for next week. So what we'll go ahead and talk about then this week then is just the different ways that not only can we space clear with Reiki, but again, filling up the space with Reiki, is just as Colleen said, because there are so many ways to do this. And I know last week we talked about kind of all of the different ways that that the reasons why there might be space clearing needed, but also that it is important to fill the space back up too. And Reiki is a perfect tool to do that with, because it is filling it up with life force energy, not only just for you and people walking into the space, but for the space itself, and just that divine light. It's just like with Reiki, we need the things to release that we need to think, that we need to heal. We need those healing aspects, but also with Reiki, as you know, just like in a session, it always fills us back up. So a space, an area, is the same. And I love that this came through, Colleen, because one of the things that we talked about in our Facebook Live last week, that I think we might have mentioned here in the actual Reiki share, was the example of how I knew that I needed to kind of space clear I talked about like at the kitchen, the space clearing, but then we talked about how I was using the Reiki ideals to kind of change my thought and fill the space with that Reiki energy. And so I was saying how when I was doing it's funny because it came all full circle in the actual Facebook Live. I was like, oh, that's what that was. So last Saturday, I was doing the dishes and just kind of like a little grumbly about it. And then it occurred to me that I was like, the Reiki ideals just kind of flooded in. And I realized that it was also part of what we were talking about on Tuesday, what we were talking about this month in the Reiki Share and like the Facebook Lives. And it was like, oh, those insights that you get, was happening on Facebook Live. And so what kind of came through when I was doing the dishes is just that the ideal of just for today, I will be devoted to my work. Like this is a beautiful thing to kind of go into. And so I'd put the dish in and say, I will be devoted to my work. And if any of those grumbly kind of thoughts came back in, I would, put the dish in. Just for today, I will be devoted to my work, and kind of filling the space with that and myself with that energy. And then Colleen was talking about, just for today, I will be grateful that I'm able to, have these dishes to do, cleaning these dishes, the running water. And I just loved that idea so much. And then even just going through the rest of the ideals and how they can fill the space with Reiki energy, and kind of release some of those grumbly thoughts. Today I will not be angry. Today I will be kind to myself and my dishes. So there's how all of the Reiki ideals can apply. And that's just one example on not only clearing the space, but also filling the space back up with Reiki, with the ideals. We can also utilize the symbols. And so Colleen talked a little bit about this. It came through in the invocation. We used more of the essence of the symbols rather than the names of the symbols themselves. She talked about the Kotodama, but also drawing the symbols into our space. I'll even do like a really big symbol into the space and kind of beam it into the space. And I'll go through all of the symbols that I'm attuned to. And, I know we talked about how I'll do that with my daughter with her nightmares. Some people in the chat said that they do that when they have that wakeful anxiety in their bed, drawing the Reiki symbols over your bed and placing them into your bed. This can happen in any sort of space that you might find this in, even an outdoor space. And then as somebody mentioned last week that, even time of day, sometimes they find the time of day is super help, or, that they have these kind of thoughts happen during a certain time of day. And so that they can, go through maybe even with the distance symbol and clear that, and then also fill it back up with Reiki and the Reiki symbols. And so that is a way that you can do that. You can chant them. So even if you're not familiar with chanting too much, just know that saying it out loud, chanting it, even kind of singing it, or if you're not comfortable with chanting or singing it, just saying it out loud into the space with the intention that you are saying the symbol into the space, and to also help fill it with Reiki. So there's kind of these longer form ritual type ways that we can fill the space back up with Reiki. Also, just doing these chantings, doing these symbols, the natural frequencies of Reiki are going to be that they're also clearing. So even if you're wondering, well, what are the actual clearing techniques? For me, it's helpful that I kind of visualize, like if I'm in a room, I'm going to kind of, lift the energy out. I'm going to use my hands and visualize that I'm lifting the energy out. but just sending Reiki into the space or doing any of these chanting or drawing the symbols into the space, the natural frequency of Reiki, it heals and it reveals. So it is going to clear the space just by doing all of these things. It's also going to fill the space. That's just what Reiki does. We all have experienced that in sessions, that we have had with Reiki or in classes, how it naturally heals and it also naturally fills back up. That's like a kind of a fundamental frequency of it. So, for me, it's just helpful to have that kind of visualization, to like, okay, I'm lifting the energy out, but I don't necessarily have to. I can also sit in the space and even just meditate with the Reiki ideals and kind of, that vibration with, even if you just have the intentions of the vibration of the Reiki energy of the ideals filling the space, even if you're saying them to yourself or just if you're saying them to the space, that as well is going to fill the space and clear the space back up with Reiki. So those are just a few ways that you can do that. Now, here's the other thing. If you don't have a lot of time, also know that Reiki on the fly can help and can work. So sometimes it might need a little bit more um, time and ritual and practice to clear the space completely, but also know that Reiki on the fly can support clearing and filling the space as well. So when we talk about Reiki on the fly, we all have these times where we can be in these really deep spaces where we're in the Reiki energy, we're, able to go fully into it. And then there's other times where either we're in a space that it's not appropriate to draw symbols, say symbols, go deep into a Reiki meditation, or you are in public and don't feel comfortable doing something like that. And then there's other times where simply we just have to do it fast. And so in those cases, even though we might feel slightly less connected as we may when we're in these really deep spaces with it, where we're spending time with it. Just know that the invitation of Reiki also works. So, you can just, like, before I go into the grocery store, I will Reiki on. I'm not always going to sit in my car and draw the symbols in my hands. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'll kind of before draw the symbols into my hands and have Reiki on. Sometimes I can't, busy and kids and all of that kind of thing. It isn't necessarily realistic. But then I've just kind of got my Reiki bubble and I'm going through the store, filling the space with Reiki, and it's a fast thing. Sometimes in my house, I'm going to just, okay, Reiki to that corner, Reiki to that corner, Reiki to that corner. So it's going to be like a faster thing. It's Reiki on the fly, and it does help. It lifts the frequencies of the spaces. Now, the other thing that we wanted to talk about today, which is an amazing tool, is called Reiki Trails. And we actually teach this in the Animal Reiki Master class. This is a technique that's from the Animal Reiki Master class. That's the manual that it went in. It's one of those things that, many of you may already do a version of this. It's not exclusive to the Animal Reiki Master students. We teach it publicly all the time. And that is essentially activating Reiki in your feet and then putting Reiki trails where you're going. And so we spend time doing this in the master class where we will spend a moment in Gasho. We're always really activated in those classes. The same with, your human Reiki classes. It's kind of the same idea. And then we'll draw the symbols in our feet. We'll draw the symbols that we're attuned to. In that class, we'll use the Animal Reiki Tree of Life symbol. And then we'll spend some time and go put Reiki trails around our spaces that we're in, that we're, taking the class in. And we just find that it lightens the space so much. And it's also something that's really easy to do publicly. Oh, hold on, Danny, I see your, here we go. It's something that you can do publicly. So like Sue tells a story about when she had to fly around when COVID started, and she was putting Reiki trails in the airport and watching the difference of the people, that would walk through kind of the Reiki trail zones, and just feeling lighter in that zone. And I love to do Reiki trails in the grocery store. That's one of my favorite places. The thing to know about doing them publicly is Reiki will never do harm. And so if somebody isn't wanting to receive Reiki, like let's say it's not within their belief system, or they just, we don't have their permission, or something like that, that Reiki won't go to them. We know that that is the case. Anytime we send it distance, even to like world events, we can feel confident that Reiki will go to who wants to receive it, who needs to receive it, and it won't go to those who don't. So that's a little bit about Reiki Trails. Danny, I see your hand raised, so I want to get to you before we talk a little bit more about it.
Okay, I'll be quick. I have two things actually. So I took an animal Reiki class years ago with you guys, and the week after I had a Reiki session with a horse. And I love horses, but I'm not a horse person. I have not been around them often. And so walking up to the stables, I was doing the Reiki trails, and it was actually for me. I mean, not the horse, it was for me to relax and just get comfortable and get out of the way. So that was really good Reiki trail. And then also another horse session, like a week after that, ironically. And this horse, I don't know if Paloma's on this call, but Paloma invited me to this beautiful stable. And this horse had just recently went blind and was in a new stable, don't know what you call it, area. And couldn't see us, didn't know, where to go. And so Paloma and I beamed Reiki into a section of this pasture that he was not in. And we just beamed Reiki there. And as we were walking away, we turned around, and the horse had walked over to this corner and was looking up to the sky and the sun had parted. It was like, we were just like, this is amazing. So anyway, just wanted to share that.
I love that, Danny. Yeah. Reiki Trails is also for us. And, one of the things that kind of happens, and one of the things that, when you're in a position where you can kind of pay attention to the trails of Reiki that you are doing, is, also kind of drawing that energy up from the earth for you as well. And those Reiki, that activation of Reiki in your feet and your feet chakras, and also potentially in the earth star, can kind of help that flow of energy. So as you're doing the Reiki trails, not only are you filling the space with Reiki, but you are also, there's healing happening for you too. They don't have to be mutually exclusive, because as we know with Reiki, we receive as we give. And yeah, Justine, it's funny, we talked about traffic last week a little bit, that, doing Reiki in traffic, it's a great way to do that and just radiating it out. You could do Reiki trails in your car, just kind of having the Reiki come out through your car, and leaving that trail of Reiki in traffic is a great idea. And also from yourself too. Also, it helps you through traffic, staying in that calmer space. So essentially, if we're going to break it down to kind of a step-by-step with Reiki Trails, because I know for those of you that have to go, might try it after this, or after the Distance Reiki Share. Essentially, you're going to do a similar way, where you start with your hands in Gasho and activate Reiki in between your palms. At this point, if you are, wanting to draw the symbols, you can start with drawing the symbols in your hands, any of the symbols that you're attuned to. You can do that. Some of you might just have the time for Reiki on, and that's okay as well. And then I'll actually, I can't get my foot up into the camera, but I will actually draw the symbols into my feet. And so if this is my foot, draw the symbol and then kind of place it into my foot that way. So that's a way that I'll do it. And, or if I don't have time, just kind of take a moment, close my eyes, and just really, Reiki on and activate, even imagine the symbols in my feet completely activated, that kind of flow of light coming out down through the bottoms of my feet, and the light of the earth coming back up through the bottoms of my feet into me, and then proceed with the Reiki trails to, my intention for that. And so that is also a really great way to do some space clearing. If I'm in my bedroom, I might just walk around it a few times, or if I'm at the kitchen sink doing the dishes, that kind of thing, I might just activate those Reiki trails and allow that the essence of the energy, and the energy just help me with leaving Reiki in this space, and also simultaneously clearing Reiki in the space. All right, Colleen or Danny, was there anything that you wanted to add to that?
Well, we'll do that next week.
Okay, sounds good. That'd be fun. Maybe that's what we'll do for the invocation. As part of the invocation is do some Reiki trails.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, and everybody, as they're leaving today and activating the Reiki trails in your feet right now and in the space you're in, because you don't have to even be moving.
Yeah.
Be right here in the ground underneath you.
Using the distance symbol. Yeah. Yeah. It can also be an intention. Thank you for mentioning that, Colleen, that it can be just an intention. So if you don't have the chance to go ahead and leave Reiki trails, or, if the mobility is an issue, you can absolutely just use the distance symbol and use the intention. And in that case, I would kind of imagine the flow of Reiki, like, going down my hallway in the floor and leaving those kind of Reiki trails in all of the spaces and areas that I need them in.
Well, and as Lynn talked about it, that she sent them out ahead of her before her walk.
Oh, yeah.
In her neighborhood.
That's a great idea. I love that.
Uh-huh.
Awesome. Yeah. And we can combine any of these techniques with any of the other ones that we do for our clearing practices. And so we are going to talk a little bit more about that, about the kind of some of the other ways that we space clear, such as smudging, sound healing, some of those kinds of things too. And then Kelly had a good idea of placing a note of the symbols inside your feet. So yeah, great.